Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today, it's a little bit late, but we're doing our spooky season wrap-up. So we're going to be talking about some horror movies that we watched over spooky season, over October. We're now towards the end of November, but we've been talking about other things, primarily The Penguin and Agatha all along, and we just needed to get through those before we could get in and just do a big wrap-up of all of the spooky season fun that we've been having in October. But now we're going to get to that stuff. We also have a news segment where we're going to cover what's been happening in the last week and some trailers that have come out, and a supersized On the Horizon segment because we are not going to be recording a podcast next week. We're taking it off for Thanksgiving, which means our On the Horizon segment has to cover the next 2 weeks instead of the next week. And that's where we're going to start things off with our On the Horizon segment.
On the horizon.
As I said, On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so, but this time we're talking about the next 2 weeks. And we're going to start things off with Dear Santa. This is the Jack Black movie that's coming to Paramount Plus on Monday, November 25th, where he plays Satan and a kid writes him a letter and confuses Satan for Santa and sends a letter to Satan. We talked about this, I think, last week.
Yeah.
For the trailer. It's Farley Brothers. It looks fun. Then on Monday, November 25th, Family Guy, Gift of the White Guy, their Christmas special, is coming to Hulu. Get Millie Black is a new limited series coming to HBO Max, also on Monday, November 25th. On Wednesday, November 27th, Moana 2 comes to theaters. On Thursday, November 28th, The Madness, a limited series, comes to Netflix. On Friday, November 29th, The Agency, which is a new series starring Michael Fassbender. It's like an espionage series, comes to Showtime. On Sunday, December 1st, Earth Abides, a new limited series that's like a post-pandemic, post-apocalypse series, is coming to MGM+. Star Wars Skeleton Crew drops on Tuesday, December 3rd on Disney+. This is the one from, what's his name? That's Spider-Man director.
John Watts.
John Watts. This is the one from John Watts. It's kind of like Goonies in the Star Wars universe. Black Doves, which is a series starring Keira Knightley. It's another espionage series, is coming on Thursday, December 5th to Netflix. Creature Commandos is coming on Thursday, December 5th to Max. This kicks off the new DCU.
Yes, the first project for James Gunn's DCU.
Yep. Gentry Chow versus the Underworld comes on Thursday, December 5th to Netflix. It's kind of got like a Scott Pilgrim versus the World kind of vibe to it, but it's like Asian. A lot of Asian American characters. Fantasian Neo Dimension comes out on Thursday, December 5th to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X, and Switch. This is the new game from Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy. Tales of Symphonia Remastered also comes out on Thursday, December 5th to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and Switch. The Sticky, we talked about this trailer a while ago. It's the one with Margot Martindale where she's like, it's like a heist where they're stealing maple syrup in Canada. That comes on Amazon Prime on Friday, December 6th. The Order, which is a new movie starring Jude Law and Nicholas Hoult, where Nicholas Holt's like a neo-Nazi and Jude Law's like a agent trying to take down this group of neo-Nazis. That comes on Friday, December 6th to theaters. Werewolves, which is the new kind of horror action movie with Frank Grillo, who was, I think most people know him as like Crossbones and like Winter Soldier and Civil War. And that's coming on Friday, December 6th to theaters. Y2K, which is a new A24 horror film that's set during the 1999 New Year's thing where everybody was afraid the computers were going to go crazy. Well, even though it's been 24 years and nothing happened, they decided to make a movie about that, and it's A24, so it'll be kind of interesting. That's coming on Friday, December 6th to theaters. And Get Away, which is a new horror comedy starring Nick Frost, also comes to theaters on Friday, December 6th. That was it for our supersized On the Horizon segment, and now we're going to move on to On Beat.
On Beat.
On Beat is our news segment, and we're going to start things off that the Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake producer has expressed his interest in remaking Final Fantasy VI in the HD 2D style. He specifically cited that they were using the sprites from Final Fantasy VI as their inspiration when making Octopath Traveler, which is the game that birthed the whole HD 2D style in the first place.
Right, yeah. Octopath Traveler was very obviously inspired by classic Final Fantasy.
Particularly 6. Like, you can really see it in like the color usage and stuff, yeah.
But it's like, cool, but this is just a producer expressing interest in something. That doesn't mean like this is ever a thing that's going to happen.
It better. If it doesn't, there's going to be hell to pay. Right now, you can't see me, but I don't know if you can hear this. I'm putting my fist into my palm.
You can buy the pixel remaster of Final Fantasy VI.
Fuck that. Fuck that, those horrible looking pixel remasters, which look better than the previous re-releases.
They fixed it.
They still look like shit.
Yeah.
They look better, but still shit, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, Final Fantasy VI in HD 2D as a remake with some like quality of life improvements and some additional content added in and stuff like that would be a dream come true. That's still one of my favorite. I have 3 all-time favorite JRPGs. It's a 3-way tie for me. It's Final Fantasy VI, Xenogears, meaning the PS1 one, not Xenoblade, and Shadow Hearts Covenant, the second Shadow Hearts game. Those 3 are like my holy trinity of JRPGs. So any one of those getting more content is like a dream come true for me. So even like the hint of a possibility of it is news for me because I really, really want this. But that's that news story. Our next news story is that Gabriel Macht is set to reprise his role as Harvey Specter in the Suits spin-off Suits LA, which stars Stephen Amell from Arrow. So what's interesting here, a lot of people know about this, but we haven't really talked about it because we never really covered Suits.
I've heard of, yes.
We haven't really covered Suits much on this show, but what's interesting is just the fact that this is one of those shows, one of many shows where like it gained this weird second life on Netflix, as if it was like a brand new show. Like the show's been off the air for like 5 years.
I'm not throwing shade at Suits in any way, by the way. I've never seen the show, but of all the shows from USA to get a weird second Netflix life, why couldn't it have been Bird Notice?
Yeah, or Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot doesn't need a second life. It ended perfectly. Be serious.
No, by second life, I don't mean like a new show.
Right.
I mean like...
Oh, well, that's what I mean.
That happened too, but what I'm specifically talking about with Suits is that the show became so popular like 5 years after it had finished running that like all of a sudden the stars of the show were like in press again. They were like doing magazine covers again, dressed as their characters. They were in like Super Bowl commercials, reprising as like themselves playing their characters.
Yeah, it's
like
crazy.
This is a thing like 5 years or something after the show ended.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's just
I was like wondering
phenomenon.
What the big deal was. I guess like there's a lot of people, I guess, who just found the show via browsing Netflix and like got really into it.
Yeah, something in Netflix's algorithm pumped it up front to somebody, and then that person watched it, and then that happened enough times that it worked its way up into like the top 10, like what are people watching list, and then people were looking through that list and said, oh, what's this? Suits. So they started watching it, and it just started steamrolling, and it was like the most popular show on Netflix for a while.
Yeah, that's pretty
like
crazy.
beating out new shows, that were coming out. and old stalwarts, you know? I mean, there's the old stalwart shows that are always do extremely well on Netflix, you know? Sometimes they come and go, like The Office is now gone. That's, I think, on, or is it back now? I'm not sure, but it had gone to Peacock. I think it might have actually got brought back, so it's also on Netflix again. I'm not sure, but Breaking Bad's another one that's like always popular on Netflix, even though it's been done for years, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, it's one of those shows that's like, is constantly talked about.
Yeah.
It's constantly in the discussion, so you're gonna have like people talking about it, and as a result of that, you're gonna have like more people who haven't like seen it want to check it out to see, okay, what is this people keep talking about?
Yeah, Suits is like a whole different thing. Like Suits was not really
and
that
nobody
big of a
was
deal.
talking about Suits like after it ended. Like I don't remember like there being like this huge Suits fandom. You know,
I mean, I watched Suits. I didn't watch the last couple of seasons. Some of the cast members left and stuff, and I stopped watching kind of around then because it just felt like it was hanging on when it didn't need to. You know, like some shows do, like The Office after Steve Carell left, kind of thing. Like similar vibes to that. So I watched Suits like up until around that point when it was like, okay, like, you know, the main characters that I was really interested in are kind of gone now. So why am I still watching this? But it's weird that the show, it was popular on USA Network. It was one of their big shows at the time, but it's not something anybody's really talked about since, you know? It's not something that's held on to any popularity. I think it's the kind of show that had all of the makings of a very, very popular show. I'm not saying like a very good show, like a critically acclaimed show. Like it doesn't have like the makings of a Mad Men or the makings of a Breaking Bad. I mean like the makings of a popular show in the same way of like, I don't know, just kind of asshole lead characters that you like even though they're assholes type thing, you know? That kind of show is like oftentimes very big and popular on like network TV even and stuff. And Suits was kind of off on USA around when streaming started taking over, like when it was first starting to take over everything. And so people just weren't really paying attention to it. So it's the kind of show that would have been way more popular than it was if it had come out just maybe a little bit before or a little bit after when it did. And it just somehow finally found its audience. So it's just kind of crazy that happened. And because of that, the Suits spinoff got greenlit. Like it's not like the Suits spinoff got greenlit and then people found the original. It's like USA or Universal because the new spinoff series is coming straight to NBC, whereas the original was on USA. Universal, who owns both of those channels, was just like, oh shit, like Suits has really taken off. We need to make more Suits. And that's like crazy to have happen like 5 years after a show's ended, you know?
Right.
So it's just kind of a crazy story overall, but it's just interesting now that the lead character of Harvey Specter is going to be returning for at least a few episodes. He's not going to be like a lead in it or anything. Our next news story is what I think is incredibly bad news if it ends up panning out, and that is that Sony is planning to buy Kadokawa. They're like a giant media company in Japan. They own a bunch of manga. They own a bunch of anime. They own a bunch of studios. Most notably, they own the video game studio From Software, who is kind of now the IT developer or IT publisher of games in the sense that they make the Soulsborne games. They made Dark Souls. They made Bloodborne. They made Elden Ring. These are kind of like, this is the genre of games right now that everybody's copying.
Yeah.
And this
developer
developer
became a big thing. Like, especially Elden Ring blew up into like this big mainstream thing. It eclipsed the sales of like their last game, Dark Souls 3, which nobody saw coming. But I also think like a lot of it has to do with like streaming, because like I know Souls games have become like really popular with like streamers.
Yeah, because people who watch streamers love to watch the streamers get frustrated and angry.
Yeah, exactly.
So Sony's planning on buying the whole company, this whole large company, including From Software, is just like a casualty within that. This is incredibly bad news if this comes through, in my opinion, because
I agree.
Not only Sony's a company that doesn't really share. Like if Microsoft was buying it, then you'd go, oh yeah, well, nothing's really going to change with the distribution of these games. I mean, except that they'd be on Game Pass day one. That's like the only thing that would have changed. If, you know, otherwise they'd still come to every other platform. Everything else would be kind of the same for them. It would be a little bit scary from the sense of just general corporate consolidation and what that means. And the scary scariness of that is a whole other thing. But from the perspective of gamers, like directly gamers not thinking of the industry and the health of the industry, like nothing really would have changed if like Microsoft bought them with their current strategy of kind of going more third party, but also having their own hardware. Nothing would have changed there. Sony is a different story. Now, Sony's been putting a lot of their games on PC now. This is like a new thing for them. And they just put out a game on Switch. They put out the Lego, Horizon.
Yeah.
Game on Switch, which is weird, but this is far from the norm. And it's not like that Lego thing going to Switch isn't like Sony saying, we're going to start putting, get ready for The Last of Us coming to the Switch successor, like that's not at all in their plans, And in addition to all of that, not only would all of the Souls games, basically, the entire genre, or its mainstays within the genre, are all from the same company. So like, they basically have a monopoly on a genre.
Yeah.
On their platform. Not only that, but the one Souls game that they do, I guess they have two you mentioned before, but the one that they do have a complete monopoly on, they're not really being good stewards of.
They haven't done anything with Bloodborne, unfortunately.
Despite fans like begging for it, basically, And it's not even just that they haven't like made a second game or that they haven't done a remaster in the same way that Sony's basically been remastering all their games over and over again. It's not even just that. It's that they haven't done a PC version, I believe.
Yeah, there's no
where
PC
they've done that
port.
with some of the other ones. They also haven't. It's gonna become hard to play on like future systems and stuff.
It's a PS4 game that runs at 30 FPS. And there has not been, like, any attempts to, like, remaster it or even, like...
Not even
like,
to get a
have
60
patch.
FPS version on PS5 or something. Not
right,
even
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah,
Modders have already managed to mod the game to run at 60 FPS, so it's possible. It's been proven to be possible. But there's no official...
They just don't care.
patch to do it, yeah.
And it's sad because this is like one of the most popular games in the genre and from the developer. And to me, that in conjunction with Sony just not sharing makes this like kind of a scary proposition outside of even just the general scariness of corporate consolidation. I hope this doesn't go through.
I hate this. I mean, this is another like part of the thing I was worried about with like Microsoft's acquisitions with Bethesda and Activision is aside for like all the concerns for that, the other concern was like it would spark this acquisition war with Sony.
An arms race, yeah.
Yeah, an arms race where Sony would like start looking at targets and be like, oh, we got countered like Microsoft now. We got to grab FromSoft before Microsoft gets it or, whatever.
Yeah. And it's like, I want to be clear, like I've been saying this would have been better if it was Microsoft rather than Sony. The only reason I'm saying that is because Microsoft's got more of a sharing strategy, at least right now. That could also change.
Yeah, that could change. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, period. This kind of consolidation is just not good, period.
No.
But at least if it was Microsoft, you'd be like, okay, well, that we're probably going to continue to get these games. At least for now, we're going to be continuing to get these games everywhere with like almost no difference. I mean, to what we've seen from other things,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So yeah, scary news, not really great. But our last news story before we get into the trailers of the week is that the 2024 Game Awards nominations have come out. We're not going to read through all of them. We'll read through a few select ones. We'll start off with Game of the Year. That's kind of the big one. So the nominees are Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree. That's DLC. They put out a statement saying that all DLC can count within their thing. That's like a clarified rule. I think they had nominations last year for the Cyberpunk DLC, but there really wasn't clarity about that.
But Cyberpunk DLC was not up for Game of the Year. DLC was
It wasn't
not
for
out.
Game of the Year, but it was up for some of the awards.
Right. I think there was like a specific award for it last year.
I think it was up for
game
some of the general
expansions.
ones too. Like it was up for some of the performance awards for some of the actors.
It could not qualify for Game of the Year because it wasn't a new game. It was expansion. And this year they changed that. That's the rule change. Like, DLCs and expansions can. And then I saw that, and then I saw the Game of the Year nominees. I was like, oh yeah, of course. Of course.
This is the Elden Ring rule.
Yeah, this is the Elden Ring rule.
Jeff Keighley can't stand to not have Elden Ring in there every year.
Yeah.
Next year he'll make a rule saying that it's okay that the game didn't come out that year.
Yeah, exactly. On one hand, I'm like, sure, I think expansions and DLC should be recognized. That they are works in and of themselves, like.
Sometimes. It's like, I think the one from Cyberpunk last year and the Elden Ring DLC we're talking about right now, Shadow of the Erdtree, both of those are pretty much full fucking games on their own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not all DLC is like that,
beefy.
but those games
full
I'm
experiences.
not talking
about like horse armor or some shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But like expansions, that's fine. But I just think maybe it should have its own category to it, because I don't know how I feel about the same game being eligible for Game of the Year 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like Game of the Year should go to a new game.
The other games nominated are Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They also had something in there about remakes and remasters also being able to qualify, I think.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. Especially remakes.
Yeah, especially remakes.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a different game. It's not,
Yeah, it's very much a different game. It's not Final Fantasy VII. It's very much not Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. I think honestly, there's more in common between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom than there is between Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Oh yeah. It's a new game that just borrows, uses the characters and the narrative from Final Fantasy VII, but even
kind of a remix even then, yeah.
Even then, there's deliberate choices to change the narrative,
Yeah, like a readaptation.
Yeah, like a readaptation. Yeah, exactly.
And then the last game nominated for Game of the Year is Metaphor ReFantasia. This is the game from the Persona team.
Yes. Their fantasy RPG that they teased ages ago on their website. It's finally been realized. It's been getting super high praise across the industry.
I think it's Atlas's fastest selling game too, which is beats out, I guess, Persona 5, I think.
Yeah, which is it's crazy because this is a new IP. It just really shows how Atlas and their games have hit the zeitgeist, I guess.
Well, it also shows how the Persona team particularly has kind of become almost more famous than their game itself.
Yeah.
People know what the Persona team is. They can see the hallmarks of it, even when it's not a Persona game, they've become a big thing,
Yeah, oh yeah. They've become a big deal, and it just proves that people will buy their games even if they don't say Persona on the box.
I'm kind of hoping that ends up winning because I don't think a JRPG has ever won Game of the Year at the Game Awards.
No, yeah.
So I'm pulling for that, even though I'm going to be perfectly honest here, I haven't played a single one of these games.
I'm going to be honest. For me, it's Astrobot. Astrobot is it's one of the best platformers I've ever played. It's almost a perfect game. It's crazy, how good that game is. How much detail and, love went into making it. Somebody called it a cynical, Sony reference. I didn't find anything cynical about this game.
I haven't heard anybody say that. I've heard almost nothing but praise for this game.
I saw, one reviewer say that. It's come on. Oh, it's a cynical, it's just trying to sell you Sony games. I'm it's just references to, stuff PlayStation fans would get because it's they're showing love to the lineage that spawned the game in the same way that Smash Brothers.
It's the Deadpool and Wolverine of video games.
Yeah. It's in the same way that Smash Brothers is a celebration of Nintendo and eventually grew into a celebration of video games just because Masahiro Sakurai loves games so much. It's not Smash Brothers wasn't about getting you to buy Zelda and Pokemon. It was just a celebration of Nintendo.
Well, it's we're going to be talking about the next podcast we do, which is in 2 weeks, is going to be a Deadpool and Wolverine because Will's finally watched it. So we're not going to talk about that right now, but there's something about Deadpool and Wolverine where everybody who went to Deadpool and Wolverine went to it for two reasons. Deadpool and Wolverine. Those are the reasons they went. But if you actually watch the movie, it's kind of like a celebration of the entire Fox Marvel universe. It's kind of like it references a lot of stuff. And you can't really look at that stuff and go like, oh, they're just trying to like cash grab on those other franchises or something. It's like, no, everybody went to it for those two characters. Everything else is just a way they decided to present that movie and what they decided to do with that movie, you know?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That's not a cash grab. That's
like
love, you know?
Everything isn't like always like pure marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for your games, Balatro. I haven't played it.
I think I'm going to get that on mobile. That's available on Android and iOS.
Yes.
So that might be the right way to play that, I think.
That could, yeah, probably is. Black Myth Wukong, never played it. Elden Ring, I've only played like a bit of Shadow of the Erdtree. It's fine. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I still haven't played that. Metaphor, I haven't played it yet. I do have it. I do plan to get to it.
I was thinking about getting Metaphor ReFantasia. I was really thinking about getting it, but I have a really strong feeling that that's going to come to the Switch successor.
I probably will, yes.
And I'm thinking I might just hold off and get it for that.
That's fair. Yeah.
Next up, we have Best Game Direction.
I mean,
same games.
It's the same games. I mean, we can just skip that. That's fine. Best Adaptation, this one's interesting.
Yeah, this is something you couldn't really do before just because there wasn't enough.
Yeah.
It was actually decent, you know, like it used to be like maybe there'd be one good adaptation, but this year has been kind of like a really good year for adaptations.
So, like, I will say, like, first off, Arcane, I saw, like, a couple episodes of that.
I should point out first, this means adaptation of, like, a video game into another medium, like movie or TV show.
Yeah, this isn't, like, best remake or whatever. Best adaptation into a new media. So, like, yeah, Arcane, I've seen a few episodes of Arcane. I will say I've never played League of Legends. I don't plan on playing League of Legends. It's not my thing. But Arcane was, like, amazing. The animation is amazing. The story was good. The characters were good.
Arcane's a big deal, not just because of it as an adaptation, but I think even more so just because it's one of two, like, projects that have basically, like, redefined animation recently.
Yes.
That being Arcane and the Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah.
Like, really showing, like, hey, this is what you can do if you just go fucking hog wild on animation and just use every different type of medium of animation possible. Like 2D on top of 3D, on top of 2D, on top of 3D, like mixing it all up and just making the most detailed and insane stuff. That's kind of been happening on streaming with Arcane and at the movies with the Spider-Verse movies. So there's kind of like a revolution happening there in animation, and Arcane's like on the front lines of that. So not even just as an adaptation, it's kind of an amazing project for that.
Oh yeah. And then we get to Fallout, which was, I love the Fallout games. I love that universe. And when I saw the show, I thought they nailed it. It was one of my favorite shows this year.
Jonathan Nolan, yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan Nolan.
And Lisa Joy, yeah.
Lisa Joy did a fantastic job with it. Yeah. I really enjoyed Fallout. That was an excellent adaptation in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Walton Goggins, you know?
Yeah, Walton Goggins is national treasure.
Yeah, national treasure. Oh yeah, for sure.
That's why Nicolas Cage keeps trying to steal him.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Knuckles, haven't seen it.
It looks good. I like
it looks fun.
I like the cast in it, but I haven't seen it.
Like a Dragon, Yakuza, I heard from people.
I've heard mixed things, mostly negative.
I've heard negative things. I heard it wasn't a good adaptation.
Yeah, what I'm curious about is if it's a good show. Like, is it, cause you can make a bad adaptation that's still a good show, and that's what I'm curious about.
I heard it wasn't a good show.
Yeah, I haven't, I've mostly been hearing comments about it as an adaptation and haven't really heard how it is as a show, so.
Tomb Raider Legend of Lara Croft.
That's the animated one.
Yeah, it's not the upcoming live action one. That's apparently going to star Sophie Turner, although that hasn't been like confirmed, but it looks like that's where it's heading.
Pick.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I saw a trailer. It looks awesome. Looks like good animation. Haven't seen it though.
Yeah.
Best narrative.
Got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Metaphor ReFantasia, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, and Silent Hill 2. Now, of those, Senua's Saga, like the first Hellblade game was seen kind of almost as like a big deal for like narrative in video games. But I don't know if it has to do with the narrative, but I've heard like almost nothing but like straight up hate about Hellblade 2. Just being like a horrible game. Yeah. I don't know if that's the narrative or if it's the gameplay.
I don't know. It got a lot of great reviews when it came out. And my impression is it's very slight on the gameplay, so that narrative has to be doing the heavy lifting.
That could very well be the case, yeah.
Yeah.
Metaphor Refantasio's got like a whole story going with, like about racism kind of stuff, going with like, you're playing as a human character in like a world where there aren't really a lot of human characters and humans are kind of discriminated against. So it's kind of like a weird take on that. That's like, I guess the story that's going on there. I don't really know too much else. I don't really want to know too much else because I want to actually play the game.
Right. I don't know anything about the story. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, again, it's a wonky
the killer
version
thing
of
there
Final
is that
Fantasy
it's
VII's narrative.
Yeah, the killer thing there is that it's like a remix on the narrative, you know, that they've changed significant details.
Like a Dragon, it's probably good.
How about the Silent Hill 2 remake? Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, it's got good reviews.
I've heard people like it, but did they change stuff about the narrative, or?
I haven't heard anything about any changes. If it's still Silent Hill 2 narrative, I mean, Silent Hill 2 had a fantastic story, so.
Yeah.
Best art direction we could skip. Best score and music we could skip. Audio design we could skip. Performance, did you want to go over that?
I don't care about any of that.
Yeah, okay. Innovation, accessibility, skip. Games for impact, we can skip.
Best ongoing game, skip. Best community support,
skip.
Best independent game, I'll just say that I think there's basically 2 games in the running here, and one of them is almost certainly going to get it. So the games in Best Independent Game are Animal Well, Balatro, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, Neva, and UFO 50. The only 2 games of that list that I have consistently heard about are Balatro and UFO 50. And Balatro is like 90% of that.
Oh, you haven't heard about Animal Well?
I've heard of Animal Well, but I'm saying like in conversations, I don't think Animal Well is even close to the amount of buzz that Balatro has.
No, I mean, Balatro is nominated for Game of the Year.
Yeah.
Which is funny. Like, but to me, like, I saw like Animal Well and like, I would really like to, check that out. I don't know anything about UFO 50. I think that'll also be good.
You haven't heard anything about that? You don't know what that is, or?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Okay, so UFO 50 is about a fictitious video game company that made a bunch of games over the eras. And there are 50 full games that are like presented as if it's like an Atari collection or something. But they never existed before.
Right.
And they're all supposed to be like really good.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's basically 50 new games if you play it. 50 new retro games that are all like top tier, you know? So I've been hearing that's recent. That's like the most recent of these, I think. And it's the one I've been hearing about a lot of people talking about recently.
And then like, let's go over
best debut indie game, don't care.
Best mobile game, don't care about mobile games. Best VR AR game, don't care.
Don't care.
Best action game. Here we go. We got Black Myth, Wukong, Black Ops 6, Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, Warhammer 40k, Space Marine 2.
I think there's a pretty good chance that Helldivers 2 is going to take this because I think it's not going to take anything else. Helldivers 2 was the early Game of the Year talk.
Right.
Like, it came out pretty early and people were talking about it as a Game of the Year contender, but it was too early in the year. And I think that because of that, it's not gonna get too much else. And I think it's gonna be one of those kind of things where because it's not getting other things, it's gonna get a lot of love in the action category.
If you were to present me this list and ask me which game I would most want to play or rather play, I would pick Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade just looks like a fun Devil May Cry action game, Bayonetta style. I love those type of games.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's right up my alley. Black Myth also looks good to me. I mean, Helldivers 2 is an online multiplayer service game. I don't care about those style of games.
I've heard good things about the new Call of Duty, but I just don't care about Call of Duty.
Yeah, I just don't like super care about Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Like I'll casually play through the campaign of one, I guess, but I don't really like go out of my way to like play those games.
I think the big dogs here are obviously Helldivers 2 and Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2.
Yeah.
Those are the ones with the buzz.
Then we got Best Action Adventure Game, which we see Astrobot, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown.
That's sad because that developer's gone.
Yeah, it's sad. They did something unusual in this day and age, which they got Ubisoft to like greenlight a 2D Metroidvania. And
it's apparently really good. That's on my list of games I need to play.
Yeah, same. And now like the developer's gone. It's sad. Silent Hill 2, Star Wars Outlaws, and Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Pretty eclectic list of games. shoving all these games under best action adventure game is like kind of weird.
I don't know how
like,
Astrobot's
so
in there. Yeah, how is Astrobot similar to Echoes of Wisdom, you know?
It's not.
Yeah.
Which makes this like a weird
why don't
category.
they have a platformer category, you know?
Yeah. Why, like,
I guess there aren't that many anymore. I mean, you'd have to count indie. If you count indies, there's a lot, but if you don't, then there aren't a lot of platformers anymore.
Yeah,
nobody wants to compete with Mario, so.
I guess, like, this is
a catch-all category.
A catch-all so that they don't have to make like 10 more categories to cover platformers, horror games, and action RPGs or like action games like Zelda is.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, anytime you try to call Zelda like action RPG, some people will give you flack for it. Like, there's no RPG.
Well, Echoes of Wisdom is further from that. It's very much more on the adventure side.
Right, yeah. They're adventure games to me.
Yeah.
Star Wars Outlaws, again, like, very different game from Silent Hill or Zelda.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a catch-all.
Yeah, kind of weird. Like, Star Wars Outlaws is almost more like an RPG.
Yeah.
Speaking of RPG.
For me, like, for this category, I like action, Astrobot, like I like all these games in theory. Yeah, RPG. This is the next big one.
Okay, you got Dragon's Dogma 2, which had a lot of hype early on, and then that kind of just died away completely. Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and Metaphor ReFantasia. 3 of the games here are in Game of the Year.
Yes. So, pretty big year for RPGs.
Which kind of means Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth and Dragon's Dogma 2 probably have no shot in hell. It's going to be one of those 3.
Yeah.
My guess is this is either going to be Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, or Metaphor.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to go to one of those 2.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get Best Fighting Game, which also like weird because we got Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, Rising Arc, Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, Arcade Classics, Multiversus.
I thought Multiversus came out like a few years ago, or was it just in beta then?
It came out last year in beta. It launched like this year, like back in June.
So it launched officially this year?
Yes.
Okay.
And according to like their earnings report, Warner Brothers, David Zaslav said it has underperformed drastically. Warner Brothers blamed a $100 million loss on Multiversus. So,
well, then I hope it wins just to rub it in Zaslav's face.
And Tekken 8. This one's weird because this is the first time I saw like a collection of like a retro game collection be nominated for like its respective category.
Yeah, that's very strange.
Yeah.
I just think this is a genre that just didn't have enough activity this year. I mean, last year was Street Fighter 6, right? So
yes.
That was the big dog, you know, like that, it would make sense then, but like now it's like, are any of these like huge,
well,
you know?
Tekken 8 is still like one of the biggest.
Well, Tekken's a big franchise, but I mean, it's not like people aren't talking about it, you know?
I think Grand Blue Fantasy versus Grand Blue Fantasy is like a very popular IP.
Honestly, the one here I've
works.
heard the most people talking about is the Dragon Ball Sparkling Zero.
Yeah, I mean, it's Dragon Ball. I mean,
yeah,
also,
but
like, it
in
has
particular,
like literally
I've heard a lot of people talking about this
everybody.
specific one, as being kind of a big deal. Like, I'm checked out on that, you know, so I don't pay attention much to it, but I hear it come up a lot.
But anyway, we got Best Family Game.
The Nintendo category, the Nintendo Award.
Yeah, the Nintendo Award, which Nintendo very, very much likely not win this year.
Yeah, this year it's probably going to go to Astrobot, which is in the running for Game of the Year, which makes it like kind of obvious. None of the others here are in the running for Game of the Year, but 3 of the 5 are Nintendo games.
Yeah, Princess Peach, Mario Party Jamboree, Echoes of Wisdom, and the Plucky Squire.
Plucky Squire, I've heard a lot of negative stuff about. Like everybody likes the art style, but that it's got some issues.
Yeah,
like in gameplay.
The Best Sim Strategy, don't care about that, but Unicorn Overlord.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's interesting there.
Nitsugami, Path of the Goddess, also, like, I heard a lot of good things about that. The Best Sports Racing, don't care. Best
I thought that was your favorite category.
I like some racing games, but, like, none of the games on this list.
How about Most Anticipated Game?
Yeah, let's get to that. Like, Most Anticipated Game, we got Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Gee, I wonder why. Ghost to Be a Toy, Grand Theft Auto 6, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and Monster Hunter Wilds. I think we know
which one's going to win.
Yeah, it's going to be GTA 6. I mean...
I thought it was going to be Death Stranding 2.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be Death Stranding. Yeah, it's going to be that.
In votes, it will be Grand Theft Auto 6, but then Jeff Keighley will step in and it'll be Death Stranding 2 on the beach.
Jeff Keighley's going to, like, sit there and pretend more people are looking forward to the next entry in Kojima's weird game series than the literal sequel to, like, the biggest gaming franchise on the planet that people have been waiting since. When did GTA 5 come out? Like 2006?
Although our commentary here is 100% true. Like, I was joking when I said anything but, when I said Death Stranding 2, it's gonna be Grand Theft Auto 6. There's no way.
Yeah, no way, yeah. I'm sorry, GTA 5 came out in like 2012, 2013.
GTA 5 is on its third generation of systems.
Yes! Which is insane. Yeah, it's gonna be GTA 6. Personally, for me, I'm looking forward
Prime
to just
4.
Yeah, Prime 4 is probably like my most anticipated on this list. Yeah.
And then the rest of the categories are just all the bullshit content creator ones and stuff.
Yeah, the content creator of the year, which I don't know like any of these people, but it's funny because the last one is a Japanese VTuber, Usada Pecora, and that wouldn't mean anything, but then I saw somebody like on Blue Sky point out that Usada Pecora just happens to be Hideo Kojima's favorite VTuber.
Oh, so
and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense why that person's there.
Yeah. I don't care about any of the esports shit. And the Players' Voice Award, the nominees aren't even announced yet, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the Game Awards. I mean, pretty solid, to be honest. Not really, but, like...
It's not a big year for me as far as games go. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad year for gaming. It's just not a very, like, games that appeal to Tyson year.
Right. There's a lot that came out that appeals to me. I think in general, people who, like, say, like, oh, modern games suck, or modern games aren't appealing, just aren't like really like looking at what's out there or what's available. There's so many games coming out. Like there's so many games that came out this year that weren't on any of those nomination lists. I think are still great.
Yeah, I mean, I have that thing with people when they talk about because there's so much. Yeah. Like I have that thing when I talk to people about like TV or like video games too, where people go like, "Oh, TV's just not good anymore," and stuff. And it's like, well, the thing is that you're used to a time when there were a very limited number of shows on. And so when there was like a really big show, everybody was watching that one show. And so everybody was talking about that one show and it felt like, man, TV is really good right now because of this one show. Now there's like a gazillion shows. And chances are that your favorite show, you could talk to somebody about it and they might not even know it exists.
Exactly.
Because there's so many shows,
there's so much content now.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with like music. Like I've talked to friends and stuff that go like, oh yeah, there's music just isn't good anymore. Like they do whatever. And I'm like, no, popular music isn't good anymore. But there's so much more new music being made now than ever before, like exponentially so, that like if you looked it up, if you actually look for it, there's like more good music now than ever. You just need to find it because there's so much out there that everything's buried, you have to like, it's like the stuff that you listen to that you're like, this is amazing is going to be stuff that like nobody else has even heard of. Because it's like so buried under a dearth of content, that I think that's kind of the same thing happening with games now too.
Yeah, it's the same thing happening with games. I mean, like I guarantee you can find something that fits your tastes.
Yeah, you just have to look.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just kind of the era we're in. We're in the era of having to look for stuff now, Like I'm not a Soulsborne player. I don't like that style of game. So if you were to look at just the most popular stuff, it's a lot of it is like Soulsborne copies now. Yeah. So obviously you'd look at it and go like, man, this is just, there's no games anymore that are good because I don't like Soulsborne. And it's like, well, yeah, but I mean like in this same year, Echoes of Wisdom came out. That's pretty damn far from a Soulsborne, Reach Fantasia came out. That's pretty damn far from a Souls game.
It's just, like, a lot of like the stuff seems samey because it's always been the way with the industry is when something like blows up, gets real popular, there's a rush by a lot of studios to copy it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that's all there is. It's just, that's just the stuff that gets the headlines, That's just the stuff that's more out front. You need to look harder. You need to, like, that's kind of the era we're in now with content is that there's so much that you just have to, like, actually put in the effort to find stuff now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just like the 5 options presented to you, you have to, like, wade through the thousands. But that's it for the Game Award nominations. And now we just have trailers to get through for our On-Beat section. And we're going to start things off with The Girl with the Needle. So this was a really fascinating trailer for me because I studied film. That's the way I'll phrase it. I watched things like Battleship Potemkin. I watched things like the original Nosferatu. I watched things like Birth of a Nation, which is problematic but still important for film as far as like the filmmaking process and stuff and some of the things that it originated with that movie. So like I've seen a lot of these old like black and white, some of them silent movies that kind of created the kind of framework for where a lot of movies ended up going years later. And watching the trailer for The Girl with the Needle, I'm like, there's like a shot that I'm like, that is straight out of Battleship Potemkin. There's another shot where it shows me downstairs. I'm like, that's straight out of the original Nosferatu.
Oh yeah.
It's like every single shot in this trailer was like from a different like old film, basically.
Right.
And like I could place a lot of them, you know, because of that. That's why I brought up the whole film.
So basically you're saying this movie looks like it was made by a huge film nerd.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
yeah.
But it's just interesting because it's like, it's black and white. It looks very old, but it's like stunningly gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. It looks fantastic. Like visually, it looks haunting. It looks creepy. It's very visual. For me, like I noticed, it was very much reminded me of like Nosferatu.
Yeah, those are kind of German
like
impressionist kind of, you know, unsettling movies from like the 20s and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot of that in there, you know, and it's, you can see it and it's like, there's like an homage going on, but it's not like a copy. It's like kind of a unique narrative fit into that. And it just looks stunning. It's just kind of an amazing looking film. This is the kind of thing that like, I'd probably have to go with myself. I don't think anybody would go to this movie with me.
Probably not.
But as a film nerd, it's kind of like, yeah, this is kind of a big deal kind of movie for me. Like, I want to see this. Next up, we got a trailer for How to Train Your Dragon. This is the live action version of How to Train Your Dragon. What did you think of this? It's just kind of a teaser.
No, it looks fantastic. It looked like very faithful to the animated movie.
I'm kind of amazed at how much the main character looks like him.
Yeah.
I mean, they did good casting, if nothing else.
They made it look like the actual animated movie without looking silly or stupid, which I was like, wow, that's a feat. They did a fantastic job with this, just judging by the trailer. I was kind of impressed.
Yeah.
In a way, like, I have not been impressed with, like, any of the live-action Disney movies. It always, like, looked, like, weird or off. This looked, like, spot on. I'm like, damn, Disney should consult with DreamWorks, see what they're doing. Because,
the Disney ones all look like the Spirit of Halloween generic costume.
Yeah. It just looks weird, you know? And it's like, why are you doing this? But...
Yeah, there's not too much else to say about it besides just kind of the visual presentation because it is just a teaser.
Right, yeah, there isn't much to go on here. We'll have to wait for like a full trailer to come out to see more of it, but yeah.
It looks like it's still going to skew pretty young, which makes sense because the original did. But it looks good. It looks like a quality adaptation. Next up, we got a second trailer for a Minecraft movie. Particularly a Minecraft movie. They don't call it the Minecraft movie.
It's called a Minecraft movie. It's not the Minecraft, it's a Minecraft movie because
even they know it's dog shit.
Well,
they want to distance themselves. Don't worry, this isn't the Minecraft movie.
No, it's a Minecraft movie because they plan to make like a ton of these because they think this is going to be like a huge box office success. And so it's not because there's going to be more than one, right?
I like my theory better. It's funnier.
Yeah, I know your theory is better. This looks like crap. I'm sorry, it looks like crap. I mean, a lot of it looks faithful to Minecraft, but it's also in a way bad because, listen, Minecraft it's a game that
it's about creation.
Yeah, it's about creation. And the game's aesthetic was very deliberately designed to like evoke Legos and like sort of like a retro gaming vibe to it. You know, like it wasn't designed to be a movie.
Yeah.
And so turning these into a movie with like live action actors running around is like very off-putting.
Yeah.
You know, like they have like everything looking like Minecraft, but then you have like Jack Black and Jason Momoa like running around. It looks stupid as hell.
It also has that like way overly polished green screen look.
Yes.
Where, like in every shot, even at nighttime, all of the actors are like perfectly lit. And it just looks odd because like it's nighttime. You shouldn't look that perfectly lit. Like it just looks unnatural. And it just makes it look even more artificial. That was something I noticed.
I don't want to harp too hard, like I'll throw away joke line or something in a movie, but like, just play a trailer where Jason Momoa says he was Gamer of the Year in 1989. That wasn't a thing. There was no such thing as Gamer of the Year back in the 80s. Come on.
There might have been, specifically for like some tiny magazine or something.
Oh, maybe. I have no clue. I don't remember that being a thing.
Yeah, wow. Gamer of the Year in like Nintendo Power.
Yeah.
And like, I think the only thing in this entire trailer that I liked was Jack Black referring to the meme of children yearning for the mines.
Yeah.
I thought that made me laugh. That was the only thing that I liked about it. That line made me laugh.
It's just like Jack Black being Jack Black and like a couple other actors running around in like a green screen Minecraft world. It's
Jason
like
Momoa wearing weird clothes and hair.
Yeah, it looks so stupid. I'm like, man. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, when they announced this originally, I'm like, okay, how are you going to do Minecraft as live action?
They should have just done an animated movie.
It's like, yeah,
it would have made much more sense as an animated movie. And then the last movie that we got a trailer for this week was Dick Dynamite 1944. Oscar winner, Dick Dynamite 1944. I'm calling it now.
Yep, Oscar winner, definitely. It has everything. It has action, adventure,
punk rock royalty,
badass heroes, killing Nazis. It's got everything you want in a movie.
A very obvious low budget.
Yeah, a very obvious low budget. Yeah, it's very Grindhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks great.
Looks like a fun time. This looks like the kind of movie that I think is for a different time. This would have been like a nice cult classic. This would have been like Repo the Genetic Opera, kind of like that kind of era of movies. This would have worked like brilliantly in.
For sure.
And now it's like, I don't know if that kind of thing exists anymore, like where it's going to get that kind of attention and that longevity through something like that, unfortunately, but it looks like a great time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, if you gotta check out any trailers from this, I would say if you're a big film nerd, check out the Girl with the Needle trailer. And if you're just in it for a good time, check out the Dick Dynamite 1944 trailer. That would be my advice. But that's it for our On-Beat section, and that leaves only our final segment, On Tap.
What we've been watching. What we've been playing. What's on tap?
We're not doing a full spoiler segment this week. We're just doing On Tap. We're going to be talking about 6 different movies or 5 movies in a TV series. But if you've listened to our On Tap segment before, we're not going to go into full spoilers. We're just kind of going to go quickly through general impressions, our likes, dislikes, that kind of stuff, without really going fully spoilery and going over every plot detail. We're going to start things off with Late Night with the Devil,
which we have both seen, so we can both comment on this.
Yes, but we will avoid full spoilers. We'll kind of just do a general kind of idea. This is something I was really excited to see it. It took a while before it was like available.
Oh, same. I was excited to see it too. I watched it last year. I think it debuted on Shudder, which I have a subscription to. So like I was able to watch it as soon as it dropped.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it until I think it's on Max now. I think that's where I saw it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I was excited for this almost alone just because of David Dastmalchian.
Yes.
Who is like
who's
one of those character actors that you love in like all sorts of stuff, but it's like finally he gets his movie, you know?
Yeah, his starring role.
Yeah, and so I was excited for it just for that. And then like, as I started seeing trailers for it and the concepts and kind of going into the kind of 1970s like late night stuff that was going on.
Yeah, it's like a 1970s period commenting on like fame and success. It's a mix between The Tonight Show and The Exorcist.
Yeah. And I think what's really cool about this is that we both saw this on TV, or like on our TV sets, I should say, on streaming. And there's something about this that like, normally I think I'd go like, oh, I wish I'd seen this in theaters. This movie, it's like, I'm kind of glad I saw it on TV because it fits on TV.
I really like
it's about TV,
the concept of Jack Delroy, like in his show, like him starting out as like having this Johnny Carson-esque show, Tonight Show-esque show, but like as the ratings decline and him getting more desperate, like it like transforming into like more of like a Jerry Springer type exploitation show.
Mm-hmm.
He starts like getting into more exploitation stuff. Really like a degradation there. Like, I thought that was interesting.
Almost as if he'd sold his soul.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah,
what
like,
do you think?
I like I said, I don't want to get into too many, like, plot details, like spoilers. There's an interesting kind of through story that's not, like, forced on you. You kind of have to read between the lines a little bit to get it. It's not, like, hard. It's not like you have to research to figure out the story.
Oh,
but
no.
it's not, like, shoved down your throat. It's not, like, straightforward.
Everything in this movie you can understand. You can connect the dots just by paying attention to the movie. Like, not, like, having to, like, look for references or like Easter eggs, but like everything is like explained to you pretty plainly and like
but it's still like indirect in a really cool way.
Yes,
which I like.
When you get to the ending, it all wraps around and like you get the significance of some of like the stuff in the exposition from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a cool way. Like there's a payoff to it.
Yeah, and this is, although we say that you don't have to like do research to kind of get what's going on to put the pieces of the story together, but if you do like look into it, there's a lot of stuff that's like based on kind of actual things from that kind of era. There's like a magician character that kind of is in the field of debunking supernatural phenomena.
He's a parody of James Randi.
Exactly.
You know, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There's like real parallels to things like that. You know, there's real parallels to like the Satanic Panic, which is going to be a heavy focus of another one of the things we're talking about tonight. But it's got like all of these kind of things and like the kind of the rumors of like satanic cults in Hollywood from like the 70s and like stuff like the Church of Satan. Like, have you heard of the Church of Satan?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But you know, like, that people like Sammy Davis Jr. was in the Church of Satan.
See, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. There were like notable figures from the time that were like in the Church of Satan and stuff. And so people would kind of freak out about that. And then eventually, like a decade after that kind of stuff was starting up, you started getting into things like the Satanic Panic and kind of the moral outrage and stuff about all that. And so there's a lot of that in there too. A lot of like the kind of idea of, you know, there's like a rumors of like secret societies in Hollywood where people do like blood sacrifices to get ahead. And there's references to that and stuff. But those are like things that people actually thought existed, you know, during that time, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So this is one of those things that like you can follow the narrative. It's not spoon fed to you, but you can follow it just by watching the movie without any other knowledge. But you can also like look into it and you'll get more out of the movie by looking into it because there's all these little references to actual cultural phenomena of that era.
Yeah. Very, very, very cool, very fun movie. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. The next one we're going to be talking about is I Saw the TV Glow. This ended up being very different than what I thought it was going to be. So this is another A24 film. This is like very art house, you know, heavy. And I thought this was going to be a horror film. That's how it's marketed as a horror film. It's A24, which is mostly horror film, but not all, you know. Everything about it was saying, oh, this is horror film. And I was hearing a lot of stuff about how the creator of this movie, the writer-director, which is Jane Shubrun, I believe this is her name. A lot of what she said about the movie was about not about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but about her obsession with Buffy the Vampire Slayer when she was growing up.
Right.
And kind of like that, using that as like a tone set for the thing or something. And that's kind of what this really is. There's a lot going on here. It's hard to get into without really getting into full spoilers of everything that's going on. And it's one of those things that when I get to the end, like I'm not sure I would recommend it as a movie, but it is incredibly interesting and very different than like almost anything else I've seen. Like it is a very different thing because it's not really a horror movie. It's like an anxiety movie. Like it doesn't horrify you. It doesn't scare you, but it builds on the ideas of anxiety and how that feels to be like in a state of like just pure like anxiety that you can't break from. And the movie doesn't put you into that state of mind so much as it depicts that in its characters. There's a lot going on with like LGBTQ stuff, you know, there's stuff about, there's a lesbian character, there's stuff in there that's very parallel to like trans lifestyle and kind of like the idea of, I think it's been referred to as like the breaking point or something where you like, somebody realizes they're trans or something and that this movie's been compared to that, to like the idea of that breaking point. And so that's kind of what I'll say about it. Like I said, I don't want to get too much into it because if you do want to watch it, I think it's interesting enough to go in without too much more knowledge than that because you'll get more out of it that way.
Yeah, it sounds interesting for sure.
One thing I'll say that's kind of interesting in it is that Fred Durst is in this movie. movie.
Oh, really?
And he has dialogue.
Did he do it for the Nookie?
But anytime he has dialogue, he's not seen. And then the most haunting scene with him in it, he has no dialogue. It's just him like staring straight ahead.
Oh, that's crazy.
He's a very minor character, but it like works. And like, I didn't, I heard that he was in this movie before I saw it. And otherwise I probably would have never put two and two together because he's such a small presence in the movie. But there's like a few scenes where you hear him talking, but you don't really see him. And then there's this one like really creepy shot of him just like staring straight ahead that you see him kind of from a distance and he's kind of just looking straight forward. And it's just like a very creepy, unsettling scene. But that's kind of all I'll really say about it. If you're interested in that, it's worth checking out, but just know going in that it is very kind of much not horror, but even though it kind of fits into some of the tropes and some of the like visual presentation of horror. And I'll also say that it is gorgeous in the sense of like color usage. Like it uses like really strong contrasting colors, like purples and greens in the same frame kind of thing. So it's very like pretty in that sense.
Yeah.
Anything else I'll just leave to people who want to check that out. So the next thing we're going to talk about is something that you've seen that I did not see. I want to see this though. And we've talked before about how there's this genre of horror movies now, or a subgenre of horror movies that are basically like, oh, it's like this, but horror. Like, It's a Wonderful Life, but horror. It's Groundhog's Day, but horror. Well,
yeah, it's
the movie you're
Freaky
talking
Friday,
about
horror
is Freaky,
yeah.
Which, as you said, it's Freaky Friday, but horror. Stars Vince Vaughn. Tell me about this, because I'm actually interested in this.
Oh, okay. So the boiler, the pitch is, this is Freaky Friday, but like a horror movie like Final Girl, Catherine Newton, switches bodies with the killer, played by Vince Vaughn. And chaos ensues, right?
So is this more fun or funny?
This is fun and funny and gory and like, it's wild. It's a roller coaster. It's got some gnarly kills. It's got some great comedy, especially like Vince Vaughn basically playing a teenage girl.
Is this actually managed to be scary too, or is it just kind of more fun, funny?
I mean, it's a romp. It's not really scary. It's a slasher movie. Mm-hmm. It's got some good kills. It's got some gory kills, but it's not something I would say it's scary because it's more of like a comedy. But it's also like surprisingly like heartfelt. Like they do something which like most slasher movies and stuff don't do, which is they get you invested in like this girl's life and like invested in like her friends and her family as like actual characters and not just like people who are there, you know, like to serve like a body count.
Yeah.
You know, like they're actual characters. You actually like care for these people and you care for her situation. And there's like a lot of like heartfelt, like heart to heart moments in it, you know, so like it's very weird to like see like all this in like a slasher movie. But it works. It works wildly well. It's a fantastic movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
All right, I'm going to have to check that out because I've been meaning to. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I remember there was a while where I really wanted to see it and I just couldn't. It wasn't available on anything that I had, any streaming services. And so I just, it's one of those things where like you keep checking up on it as you're waiting for it, and then you just start checking it less often and less often. And then once it does become available, become more widely available, you're kind of like, you're not into it anymore. It's not that you don't want to watch it, but you're just not like eager to watch it anymore, you know?
It's on Peacock.
Yeah.
Which is like, if you have Peacock, you can watch it. I don't think it's on anything else at the moment.
Well, we're going to move on then to the next movie, it's not a movie, this is the TV series on the list, which is also on Peacock, by the way. And that is Hysteria. So it's a new showrunner that's handling it. Doesn't really have a lot of experience besides this. Did a movie, I believe, called Stitchers is the one thing they did as a showrunner. This stars Julie Bowen from Modern Family and Bruce Campbell, and then a bunch mostly less known people besides that. Garrett Dillahunt is in this as well. I didn't know he was in it until I saw it
cool.
later on. So he's been popping up in a ton of stuff that I've been watching recently. I've been rewatching Burn Notice and he popped up and I'd forgotten he was in it. But yeah, so kind of the basic way to describe Hysteria is it's about the Satanic Panic. And so it takes place in the early 80s and the main character is kind of a geeky guy who's into metal, and he's got a band. It's a 3-person band. It's like him and this girl and this other guy, and they're in this band together, and they're all friends, but they're all kind of like outcasts. Like nobody really pays attention to them or anything. Well, this kid gets like abducted, and with all of that happening, and the kid ends up being found dead, and everybody's like freaking out about it, and there's all this rumor of satanic cults and stuff going on because it's in the height of the satanic panic. And so the band decides, well, we're going to use this to like promote ourselves. We're going to like basically say we're like agents of the devil and you should come and see us, because they know that they're going to be able to reach kids. You know, the other kids at the school are going to like want to see them and stuff because of that. And because they do that, they end up kind of getting wrapped up in all sorts of shit. The trailer made it look like maybe there actually is something supernatural going on. I won't really say whether or not that's true because that's spoiler territory, but I'll just say that that's like not really the focus. It's more about like the characters and the kind of the panic, the moral panic that the satanic panic was. It's kind of like front and center to everything that's happening in this. But yeah, it is a good show. I'd say I have a few quibbles with it, a few things that I don't like about it. One thing is that I always have issues whenever something tries to depict like metal, because it's a genre of music that's very specific and very like, if you're into it, you can tell when people are faking it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's something that's hard to depict, because it's just like, oh, you're trying to make like a metalhead character, but you don't really do it all that well. I think a recent example that did it very well would have been like, say, Stranger Things season 4 with like Eddie Munson. Did a really good job of depicting like what a metalhead is like what that kind of group is like. And I don't think they necessarily did that good of a job here. It's not horrible. It's not like a lot of times when you have like a band in a movie or something, it's just like, oh, this is a metal band and that's the story in this thing or whatever. And it's just complete and utter garbage. The songs are garbage. That it's like they're trying to make it like it's supposed to be like metal, but then they're like playing, I don't know, just hard rock songs. It's just they're not doing it right, if you know what I mean. There's a little bit of that in here, but it's not the most atrocious I've seen. Far from it. There's actually some okay stuff going on, some okay metal references, some like in that aspect it's okay but not great. The show itself, I think it hits on some things that I was hoping it would hit on and ends up being kind of effective in that sense. I think Bruce Campbell is great in it, and he plays a very different kind of role than he's used to, so it's kind of fun seeing him stretch a little bit and play a different kind of role. And that's pretty much all I'll say. Just give it a shot. Hysteria. It's about the satanic panic.
Nice.
Next thing on here is another one that I haven't watched, but you did. And this is something that you weren't too excited for. This is a pick that you made that you kind of decided you needed to watch something else.
I went off the log line and the actors in it. So this is a movie. It stars Bill Skarsgård, Micah Monroe, Jeffrey Donovan, and Keira Sedgwick.
It's titled Villains, by the way, is the name of the movie.
It's titled Villains, yeah. And the premise is that these two amateur criminals who had just like robbed a gas station, and then their car stalls out and they find this large home with like nobody home, and they decide to break in to see if they can like steal their car and keep going. And during the process, they find out that like this couple has like a young girl chained up in their basement, and they get caught up with like trying to save her, and then they meet the couple. Yes. And then they meet the couple who take them captive. And then
if I had a nickel.
Yeah. And then the rest of the movie is them trying to like figure out how to escape the psychopathic couple played by Keira Sedgwick and Jeffrey Donovan, you know, with the girl.
Mm-hmm. So they're the psychopaths are Keira Sedgwick and Jeffrey Donovan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Bill Skarsgård and Micah Monroe are the victims. And
the criminal victims.
Yeah. And I mean, it's perfectly fine. The performances are great and stuff, but I mean, it's not, I don't know, like it's billed as a horror movie. It's not really a horror movie to me. It's more like a thriller, you know, like, and also like a comedic thriller too, because the performances are a bit over the top. Jeffrey Donovan has like this like really comedic, like a southern accent thing going on. And Keira Sedgwick too, like they're a southern couple. And Keira Sedgwick's character is like just batshit crazy, just completely out there. The movie is basically like all their attempts to escape, and then like there aren't like really like any kills until like the end. I don't know. It's fine. It's just like it's a pretty straightforward movie, I guess. It just like nothing crazy happens.
It didn't put you into the spooky mood.
Yeah, it didn't put me into the spooky mood. I'm like, I need something spookier than this. I don't know.
All right, so the last thing we're going to be talking about is the new Salem's Lot adaptation, which came out in 2024, this year. This was made in like 2020, I believe. This is one of those things that just got beat to shit by COVID. Like COVID happened, the strike happened. We've seen this happen with a lot of movies, but this is one of the ones that like really suffered from all of that lockdown stuff that was happening and how it was hurting movie production at that time. This is an example of that where this movie was supposed to come out like I think in like 2021 and didn't end up coming out until 2024 and as a streaming only movie. So yeah, this is an adaptation of the Stephen King book of the same name. This had been previously adapted as a television movie. I saw the television movie. I never read the book. I don't really remember the television movie. That was quite a long time ago that I watched it. I watched it when it was fairly new, and that's what I think it came out in the early 90s or something. So I don't really have much in the way of memories of Salem's Lot. So I can't like directly compare and contrast and say like, oh, this part wasn't done as well here or this part or like, so some of my complaints might be true of the book and the first adaptation as well, or they could be unique to this movie. You know, I don't know. I will say the movie is pretty gorgeous. It's shot very well. There's really good use of color. It looks like the director's a bit of an amateur in the sense that they don't really, there's some shots that are included that only kind of take away. You know, sometimes less is more. And the first time you see the main vampire guy, it's a very unnecessary shot and it would have been better if they just cut it entirely. It's one of those things like, why are you showing us this now? Like you're giving away the big bad way before his presence is ever truly felt. Like we don't need to see him yet. And it kind of took away from it when things finally do get rolling. Cause I was messaging you as I was watching it and I was saying like, this is actually going pretty good. Like they're actually putting some focus on the characters and they're like, there's almost like nothing happening yet. Like the horror kind of elements aren't really even in play yet. It's all just character build up. And it's like, this is actually kind of nice. They're really spending some time with the characters and building them up and stuff. Well, the problem is that once stuff starts happening, it just happens way too fast. And like, it just takes away from all of it. I don't know. I think maybe this would have worked better as like a limited series than as a movie where they could have actually taken all the time to build up the characters and then taken the time to really flesh out what's happening in the story.
Right. Yeah.
But instead, it's like they took all the time to build up the characters and then they said, oh shit, we need to get through the story. Well, okay, blah, 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 we're done.
So they just like rushed through it.
Yeah. So the actual like events, they just rushed through so fast.
Oh, that's disappointing.
A lot of the kills are kind of not really that dramatic or that interesting, not that inventive, which was a little upsetting too, because before you get to the kills, like there's some really cool shots. Like there's a shot where these two guys are like delivering the vampire who's like in a box and they got paid to deliver it into the basement of this house. And they know they're doing something sketchy, but they don't really know what. They don't really want to know what they're doing. And when this one guy, he's kind of like, he opens up the doors to the basement. It's like an outside cellar basement style thing, you know? He opens up the doors to it and he's looking at it and then the screen starts slowly turning like red. And that's happening because his partner's backing up the truck. And it's the truck lights on the back of the truck are illuminating it red. But it comes in like subtly, so it's like a really cool shot that they're trying to like emphasize like, oh, this is a bad thing. This is a place you don't want to be. And yet as it's pulling in, it's a practical effect. It's the truck. It's the light. So it's like a really cool shot. And I just wish they would have gotten more of that with the inventiveness of the kills and stuff, and they don't, which is unfortunate. So if you watch this movie, kind of like all the best shots and stuff are like basically at the beginning before anything is actually ever happening.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, so it's kind of like I have mixed feelings on this because it's like there's definitely a lot of shots that are just really cool looking and really well done and stuff. But then when it actually gets to like the big meaty stuff that you want to see, like really cool stuff, it's really not there. It's just it's kind of just generic and goes by and it's not really that big of a deal. Outside of one big kill at the very, very, very the end of the movie. There's like really cool looking shot that's like a big kill at the end. And that's it. Besides that, like all the kills are kind of boring and unimaginative, and a lot of the characters, they kind of get set on their path of doing something like way too quickly. There's a part where a guy suspects vampires, and it's like, there's no way he would suspect vampires at this point. It's like, it's way too early. Not enough has happened where any rational person would go, I bet these are vampires, you know? And
Right.
It's like, he's already like, shit, there's vampires. And it's like, what? Like, how did you come to that conclusion that quickly? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And then he goes and convinces some other people to go with him to investigate and tells them that there's vampires. And they accept that way too quickly too, before they get any proof. So it's just kind of weird how, like, quickly things are just kind of accepted. And it's just like they couldn't figure out how to pace that in correctly. So they just kind of shoved it out. Like, we don't need to, like, convince you that there's a reason to think that there's vampires here. We'll just say it and, you know, just accept it. So that's kind of like my feelings on Salem's Lot. I think it's almost worth watching anyways, just because it's so pretty the way it's shot, its use of colors and everything. It's just, it's like a nice looking movie. And the early stuff that sets up is interesting. And then it just falls apart when it actually gets into the actual plot. But that is it for our On Tap section and for our podcast. As I mentioned before, we are not going to be doing a podcast next week because it is Thanksgiving next week and we're going to take some time for ourselves. But the week after that, we're going to be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. So tune in for that. Until then, thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can follow using those same usernames on Blue Sky as well. So you can check that out if you've made the transition to Blue Sky. You can also go to our website, thetotalscreen.com. If you go there and open up a container story for any of our podcast episodes and scroll down to the bottom paragraph, you'll find all of our relevant links to our SoundCloud page, our RSS feed, all of our social accounts, all that's there. So you can check that out. You can also subscribe to our podcast through your favorite podcast client of choice like Apple Podcast or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast as well as additional content is available on our YouTube channel. So check that out as well. Thank you everybody for listening. Bye.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the On-Screen Podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.